Hi, I'm Liz, CEO and founder of Worth It. We specialise in the early prevention of mental health problems for children and young people using positive psychology and coaching psychology approaches. Today's video is about how coaching can fit into a school setting to help provide effective evidence-based early intervention, what the difference is between coaching and counselling, and coaching and mentoring, and how they all work together to provide effective targeted intervention, and really what it is about coaching that really makes it an effective approach to use with young people in school settings. If you're interested in this in a bit more depth, then please sign up for my free Introduction to Coaching Young People online course, which you'll find in my Wellbeing Academy. A link's in the description box below. If you're interested in training to become a coach to support the mental health and wellbeing of teenagers and young adults, then please apply for my Worth It Coach training course. A link is in the description box below for that as well. Over to the main content of this video today. So some of you guys might be from schools, and you might be aware of the 8 principles to developing a whole school approach to wellbeing. So this has come out of Public Health England's work a few years ago, and then the Department for Education have, I'm going to say, latched onto it as their framework for senior mental health lead training. So there are 8 areas, and there's a whole set of learning outcomes that a senior mental health lead should be doing to develop whole school mental health and wellbeing. As part of that remit, one of the areas is targeted support and appropriate referral. As you are probably well aware, even though we've had a lot of rollout of mental health support teams now, if your school's working with a mental health support team, you might know what I'm talking about. They're not in every area of the UK yet, and some people on this call are not even from the UK. So they're meant to be doing more early intervention, but they're already at capacity for a lot of areas, and the remit is turning more to schools to do more targeted early intervention, because what we're seeing now, and when I speak to schools every week, they're telling me the onset of mental health problems, the impact of COVID and the aftermath of that, they're only starting to see the struggles that some of the teenagers are having, especially now as they reach their GCSE years. The people that were like in year 8 and 9 during lockdown are really struggling. So it's just putting more and more pressure on schools. Also, from the Department for Education's advice, this is what I kind of pulled out of their information. So the 4 things that a senior mental health lead or a school need to be doing to promote mental health and wellbeing are prevention. So creating a whole school approach to early prevention. So creating the right ethos and environment to facilitate wellbeing, to make the interventions more effective, because that whole school approach wraps around the interventions that you're doing, i.e. coaching in my case. Identification of problems and noticing young people are struggling earlier. You've got maybe assessment criteria, or staff just know, they can just see John is struggling, or I'll think of a name, Oliver, they're all called Oliver, aren't they? Oliver is struggling, and that he needs to be referred to somebody who's going to ask him a few questions and find out a little bit more about what's going on and what kind of early intervention support he needs. And then we've got early support, which is where coaching comes in. So early in the onset of the problem is where coaching can offer early prevention. So helping pupils and students access evidence-informed early support interventions. You might have a counsellor, you might have art therapy, you might be doing things like that, but you might not have thought of coaching as a evidence-based early intervention. And access to specialist support. So when I coached young people a few years ago, we did a program called Coaching Outreach, where we got funded by the local authority, and we'd go into schools and go into homes, and we would outreach to the students who were struggling to either get into school because of attendance issues and anxiety and things like that, or access CAMS. So we do step up, so coaching young people to engage in services and interventions that they might feel fearful of, or they might need to work on some confidence or interpersonal skills, or planning and action planning to help them move towards the intervention like CAMS or bereavement support, or something more specific and to deal with a more specific need, or step down support. So maybe they've been in CAMS, or they've been having counselling, or they've been addressing some underpinning stuff, but now they want to move forward. So then that's called step down. So coaching can also act as a step up or step down targeted intervention, as well as it can offer targeted early support, of positive psychology and coaching, and how they are best friends. So there's you can do a course in positive psychology interventions, and you can do a course in how to be a coach. What I have done, because I'm a positive psychology coach that specializes in working with practitioners who work with young people, and I've coached young people myself for years, is the integration of the two. So integrating positive psychology and coaching psychology improves well-being and optimal functioning. So the coaching part helps them move forward and plan to take actions to move forward. The positive psychology interventions that you do during the coaching relationship and coaching sessions are evidence-based approaches that have improved well-being. So this is a really helpful model to think about how coaching and how well-being and engagement. So a lot of people want to use coaching to help improve academic outcomes or prevent NEET or early crime prevention and things like that. So what we want to do is think about how being disengaged in education is actually a risk factor for mental health problems, and how we want to prevent disengagement. So what we have on this axis is low engagement and high engagement. So we want a highly engaged young person with high mental well-being that is helping them to flourish. So below the line, which is low mental well-being, is languishing. So they don't necessarily have a mental health problem. They wouldn't get an access to CAMHS if they had a CAMHS referral, but they don't have any internal resources for well-being or resilience either. And above the line is functioning, which is where most people are. But just because someone is functioning doesn't mean that they have good mental well-being. They could be really struggling. So then we have someone who's got low engagement and low mental well-being. So they're distressed and they're disengaged. So they're the ones that, you know, might not be attending school, might be getting involved in some high risky behaviors, are at risk of county lines, gangs, or, you know, all those things that are just languishing, you know, like playing on their computer or their whatever, Nintendo, whatever games they play these days, on their phone all day long, just faffing around. Then we have distressed and functional. So this might be that they're highly engaged and they have low mental well-being. They're the ones that really concern me. So the high achievers, we don't maybe notice them because they're doing well academically, but then they might be self-harming in the toilet, or they might be like taking caffeine pills to stay up and revise all night long. They might be completely freaking out. I mean, I do coaching at the university with third year students, and they are cracking up. Some of them are really doing well with their academic studies, but they are like rabbits in the headlights. So I would say they're definitely distressed and functional. And then we have plodders. So they're quite happy in themselves, quite contented actually, but they have low engagement. So what we know is that we need a young person to have high connectedness to school and high connectedness to their peers in order to also prevent the onset of mental health problems. And then we have flourishing, which means they have high mental well-being and high levels of engagement. So coaching can really help with both of these things. So it can help move them towards being more engaged through being motivated and action planning and growing in confidence and resilience and, you know, taking accountability and ownership of their academic progress. And it can help them, and that in itself improves their well-being. It improves your well-being, but also they can also learn specific tools and resources and strategies that are evidence-based to improve well-being. So the two of those things kind of work together in a parallel process to help them move towards flourishing. So flourishing is well-being. It's the same thing, but it's a positive psychology term. This is the latest research that I've come across. Longitudinal study of 84 secondary schools and 8,000 participants in what is effective early intervention to prevent depression in teenagers. And what they found out was school climate and positive relationships were the most important thing that act as an early intervention. So better student rated school climate at the student and school level. So coaching, depending on how you apply it, coaching can really help at the student level. So it can help improve that relationship and interaction with the student. If you take coaching ethos and embed it into your school culture, which I already touched on a little bit today, that is at the school level. with lower risk of depression, fewer social, emotional, behavioural difficulties, and higher levels of well-being. Coaching helps in reduce behaviour issues, which helps reduce staff workload issues, because most teachers are struggling with young people's behaviour incidents in school. Our findings suggest that, and it's not about telling them off and pointing out all the things they've done wrong. It's about helping them realise and take responsibility for their their behaviour, and helping them understand how they might be behaving and what's a more positive, helpful, healthy way to behave. This has come from my research. So Worth's way of coaching, the definition I came up with is: through the experience of coaching, young people develop accountability, awareness, and increased choice and control over their thoughts, feelings, and behaviour. This results in their ability to manage situations, improve confidence, and feelings of well-being. So it's the choice and control over thoughts, feelings, and behaviour. It might not be that they change their behaviour, but they have a choice instead of an automatic reaction. So you're helping them change their perspective and see that there's different ways to think about things, and increase the amount of personal resources within themselves, so that then they can choose to act differently, or feel different, or think differently. So everyone finds it a bit hard to think about where coaching fits between all the different interventions that are around. So this is actually something I learned on my master's. So we've got the pink one, which is coaching there, and there's overlap between a lot of different approaches, and you might have a coaching approach to mentoring, you might have a coaching approach to teaching, you might have a coaching approach to training. That's what I do when I do my training. I used to be a careers advisor, so careers advice and guidance. Counselling, you might some people I work with train to be counsellor and coach, and they use both methodologies in different ways. And then we have psychotherapy, clinical psychology, and psychiatry, which is the acute end of dealing with disease and illness and mental illness. We're not dabbling in that area. We are using coaching here, which I'll go into explain in a minute, but you might already have one of these other roles, and you might want to add coaching as a string to your bow, or you might want to integrate coaching into teaching, or training, facilitation, or mentoring. So you're switching different hats. So just to clarify a bit further, because the main two things that people struggle to get their head around is what's the difference between coaching and mentoring, and what's the difference between coaching and counselling. So mentoring helps increase already present motivation. Somebody usually goes to a mentor because they want to improve something, or they want to find out about jobs, or they want to change something, and it's a shortcut. So they're usually academic or career-based knowledge, broaden awareness of opportunities, increase their personal networks, and provide shortcuts. Mentoring is ideally to provide shortcuts, offer insights and different perspectives. So there's an overlap there with what coaching does, but it's not about helping somebody take accountability so much. It's somebody offering advice. If I were you, I would do this. Have you spoke to so-and-so? It's more directive. Counselling helps with the impact of traumatic events, with grief, potentially with grief and bereavement, manage the impact of experiencing abuse potentially, support and self-understanding to develop understanding of complex emotions, so that deep emotional work, support with psychological distress, address harmful coping strategies and suicidal ideation. So counselling is much more about what's the root causes of a lot of things, whereas if I was coaching somebody and they start to talk about childhood stuff or traumatic things, I would say, and how is that affecting you now, and how do you want to move forward from that? And I wouldn't really go investigating with them how did they end up there, and what do they feel about it, and what's caused it, and like a deep dive into that area. We tend to focus on how is knowing that helping you move forward, so that you can then keep moving towards your goals and keep moving forward. So this is a quite useful diagram to kind of explain how it all works together and how it all fits. So mentoring works on the what, coaching works on the how. It's the practical how-to part, and therapy is about the who am I, what's causing me to act in these ways in a lot more depth. And there is a grey out area called the boundary, where coaching and therapy meet. I operate here on the boundary because I feel confident and able to do that with my years of experience and a lot of CPD of working with vulnerable at-risk cohorts. Whereas you might not feel you want to go there. So you might want to just work on the how and the practical part here, or even be more directive and towards the mentoring scale. Or you might already be a counsellor and you might be working on this part and wanting to work more on the coaching approach to help them move forward and help them progress. So coaching helps develop personal resilience, increase wellbeing levels, manage behavior, increase motivation, engagement in learning, increase aspiration and achievement, develop self-belief and self-worth. That is why we are called Worth It as an organization. Promote confidence, self-efficacy, which is context-specific confidence. Develop communication to personal skills. That is fundamental as to part of our approach. Develop problem-solving abilities, develop thinking skills and perspective taking. So it's quite interesting. So I only did this interview, and so Justin's working in an independent school, and his coaching is very much the how practical part of that diagram that I was just explaining. And all the young people he's coaching are also working with the school counsellor, and she's, I think it's she's doing the what, the who, and the core, the more root cause stuff. So he's helping coach them on moving forward. So I'm going to read this out. You look at so many schools, it's about creating independent, forward-thinking individuals that can stand up for themselves. They're resilient, but actually, do we give them, students, the tools to do it? I've always wondered how to do it until I've done this course. How do I get them to be resilient? How do I get them to think through problems? How do I get them to think about where they want to be, reflect, come up with strategies and be accountable? But the coaching really does work in that regard. And then he said it's just the positive approach that he really appreciates, and the fact it's led by the students. And when the students know it's a positive approach and it feels positive to them, they're more engaged in the process, and that they're actually more accountable for their own actions and moving forward and taking things forward. Anyway, I've done a YouTube video if you're interested in. It's the latest YouTube video, is Justin's interview. So I just took that quote from there because it really kind of sums up like how coaching can help a young person, in not my words, in somebody else's words. So I came up with this diagram to explain how coaching works. So by learning the skills that improve well-being, and developing resources for mental health through the coaching process, you actually teach them specific tools and strategies through the experience of the intervention with you. So you are a facilitator of well-being just through your way of being as a coach with the young person. They experience a positive relationship with a safe, trusted adult. That feels good. So that boosts their well-being. As they experience that, but you're also role modeling effective communication and positive relationships, and so they can learn from you. And then you're helping them actually practice specific skills around communication, opening up, even stuff like eye contact and body language in some cases, so that they actually feel able to communicate more effectively. Do not underestimate how important that is as part of the intervention's success. And I think it's massively overlooked as why, what kind of interventions young people need. And then through practicing the coaching skills, tools, and practicing this coaching skills and tools that develop wellbeing and resilience. And I always say it's practice with an S until it becomes practice with a C, until it becomes part of their way of being. So through the process of coaching, they'll learn stuff in the session with you, you'll try out a tool, you'll work through a sort of conversation with them, and then they'll go away and think about it. Slides are moving on by themselves. They'll go away and they'll think about it, and they'll come back to you and they'll say, well, I tried that and it helped, or it didn't work. And then, they're reflecting and kind of growing and developing their own skills, so they're not dependent on you. Any coach that's creating dependency is not coaching properly. We should all be coaching to make ourselves redundant, so that the young person actually ends up coaching themselves, because they can almost hear their own voice, or they can hear your voice. Oh, that's what Liz would have said about this situation. What would how would she think about this? And then, do you see what I mean? So they actually then don't need you anymore.